And we are back. What's up, Doc? Dox, sorry.
Not much, buddy. What's up with you?
I pulled a Bugs Bunny for a second. What's
Buzz,
up,
man, how
Doc?
are you?
I'm good, brother. I'm good, man. It's good to finally talk to you, man.
Yeah, man.
I just want to tell people the story. I've said it a couple of times on here now, but the story of how I kind of met you and Chris. Um, Basically, I was randomly streaming. No, not randomly streaming. Sorry, randomly browsing on Twitch in a section that I really just never even go on. Um, and for some reason, I'm like, yo, let me check out podcasts, talk shows, whatever. I must have went through like 15 or 20 of them, and I don't know why, but they're all just so boring to me. They weren't interesting at all. I was probably in each one for like 30 seconds. I'm like, oh my god. Then I see this guy right here who I'm talking to, and I see my man Chrissy C with his thick Scottish accent, and I'm in their stream, and they're just talking about UFC and like the rules in the UFC, and like not only were they talking about the UFC, which I know nothing about, but they were talking about like specific things in the UFC too. So when I first got in, I'm like, all right, I'm probably going to be in this stream for like 15 seconds and then like get the hell out of here. I know nothing about UFC. And then I heard, I ended up staying, I think, 3.5 hours. That's podcast. I watched your entire thing. Um, I saw you. I saw Chris. I loved your guys' your energy. You guys have a good, nice partnership going on. And dude, instant fan.
Nice. Actually, you mentioned the podcast you jumped in on. We weren't actually talking about the UFC specifically. We were talking about the media reaction to name Naomi Osaka,
Mm-hmm.
the tennis player who bowed out of the French Open due to um, social anxiety issues. We started talking about how mental health was an important thing, and that the media was trying to bully Naomi Osaka. But on the flip side, they wouldn't bully a female fighter from the UFC like Amanda Nunes. That's where you came in. We were talking about the different media reactions to different sports, where in MMA, no media is going to bully somebody like Amanda Nunes or Misa Tate or Holly Holm because they'll jump over the table and kick your fucking head off. Pardon the language. I don't know if I can swear. I mean.
No, you're good, man. You're good.
But
We're a bunch
the
of
French
degenerates here.
Open, oh yeah. But the French Open media saw this demure Asian American, I think she's an Asian American, this Asian American player, and they decided to run roughshod over her. My response and Chris's thought was, do that shit to Amanda Nunes. Watch what happens to you. That's where you kind of came in. That's when we were talking about the UFC.
Yeah,
We weren't
yeah.
talking about the UFC or MMA specifically. We were talking about the media response to the UFC and French Open athletes.
Okay, right. Yeah, you're refreshing my memory. That is right. I do remember that now. And I think that is why I liked you guys, because I remember you guys were talking about like morals and ethics and that kind of stuff. And I agreed with both of you on a lot of that stuff. So that's probably why I stuck around. I guess for some reason I was so new to it. I heard UFC and like I'm like, I don't know nothing about this or whatever. Like this is all alien. But then yeah, you guys were talking about like your opinions on stuff and like ethics, morals, whatever, and I totally agreed with both of you. And yeah, from there, dude, was just hooked, like an instant fan, honestly.
Hey man, we appreciate it. You're a cool dude. Here's the thing, like the thing that Chris and I have sort of figured out is Chris and I don't bullshit. We're not fake. We're not disingenuous. We don't play characters. We are who we are. And a lot of times, streamers put on airs, right? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes they do it because they can't be themselves because they have social anxiety, and they have to sort of put on this mask or this persona to be able to do it. Because let's face it, man, hitting that go live button is hard. It ain't easy. You're putting yourself out there for millions of degenerates, anytime on Twitch. 90% of the people are cool, but 10% you get these fucking trolls that just they pick whatever they see, and if and they go at it. And if you got any type of anxiety or you got any social awkwardness, hitting that go live button is really hard for people. So Chris and I, we don't we don't have to have a persona or whatever. And I'm not saying if you do it's bad. You do you, whatever makes you comfortable hitting the live button. But Chris and I, who we are, he's a drunken Scottish idiot, and I'm a Midwestern moron. So I mean, there's no bullshit. It's who we are. We are. And that's who we are. We're big characters. We're big personalities, but we're honest. And no matter what, you're going to hear what we think, whether you like it or not. Because I'm either going to shout it from the Highlands, or Chris is going to jabber it from somewhere in the Scots bottom. Oh, good.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that a lot. Like you were saying, dude, pushing that live button, especially the first couple times, dude, it is hard. So me, I had no idea what I started streaming maybe like 3 months ago, by the way, and I have no Twitch background. I had no idea what Twitch was about at all. I had never even gone on the website at all. So I remember my first couple times. One, I wanted a freestyle. Um, for people, which is like kind of in itself nerve wracking because you're coming up with shit on the spot, and it's very easy to just get some sort of like brain fart or brain freeze where you're like, whatever. Um, but yeah, I remember the first time I was super nervous. And another thing is, I was really afraid of like the copyright stuff on here. And I'm like, dude, I can't play anything like that they're gonna take down my channel and get copyrighted or whatever. So I was playing these like horrible Twitch safe instrumentals that sometimes I use for the intro here, but it's horrible to freestyle over. And then I started getting it, and also, by the way, I was drunk as shit because I had to get myself drunk to even work the courage up to even do it the first time. Um, but then I started doing it more and more, and I thought it was cool. And also, I realized that Twitch doesn't give any sort of a fuck about any copyright stuff. I've literally like played entire movies on here, and haven't even gotten like a single strike or whatever.
The thing is you're not big enough yet.
Yeah, that is true too.
The DMCA becomes a threat when you are large. You're a large enough creator where you're gonna get corporate attention. Like guys like me and you, Chris, and some of the lower end guys that we know, we're not gonna get DMCA. But for me, I don't even want to go there because I got a lot of stuff. So I've never played anything that could be DMCA because I knew the DMCA copyright firestorm was going to come to Twitch. I had seen it happen on YouTube, and I knew it was coming for Twitch. But when it did happen, I knew it was going to hit big creators, and little guys like me wouldn't have to worry right off the bat. So I just made a conscious effort not to do DMCA stuff no matter what. And I mean, I don't hate on anybody that does. It's just I saw that axe coming a year and a half before it hit, and when it did, everybody kind of lost their shit. And I was like, I ain't got nothing to worry about. I ain't never fucked with the stuff. So why y'all mad at me? And they were like, well, fuck you, Dox. I'm like, you'd like to, but you're not getting a chance. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of similar with a lot of music stuff too. It's almost like posting on SoundCloud, the same kind of thing where I'm small enough where I could literally post like any sort of copyrighted thing, and like I could, if I wanted to, I could post like me singing Beyonce's lyrics, and no one's gonna, Beyonce's not gonna be like, hey, those are my lyrics or whatever. But then like bigger guys, they have the same kind of problem, which is almost like, I don't want to say a good problem to have, but it's like, dude, you don't really have to worry about it until you've kind of made it in a sense. And by then, it is almost like a good problem to have.
Yeah, because you're big enough where advertisers and record labels are noticing you. On the flip side, you got all that hassle of having to go back in your catalog and delete all your DMCA shit before they take your channel away. So it's one problem on one hand and another problem on the other, and it's one problem I don't want to deal with. So for me, not being a music creator, but I do, oh man, I do so much weird shit. Finding me on Twitch is difficult. So, but I do stuff like voice acting. I do voiceover work on like I'll take short films and I'll remove the audio track and do like live voiceover for that. I do tabletop RPGs. We have the podcast. I do like role playing workshops to help people out, and then I play video games. So it's like I do so much shit. Like if this is the Twitch main road and like guys like Tim the Tatman and Dr. Lupo and those guys are on it, I'm so far off the beaten path that you either got to know me by name or you got to know somebody who knows somebody that tells you, like, yo, that gray bearded weirdo, kind of legit. You should probably check his shit out. Because you ain't going to find me on Twitch Main Street. I ain't going to be nowhere near Twitch Main Street. I'm on the dark alley, down the dark corner with graffiti in the dumpsters and a couple of homeless guys that know the secret. You found Dox Ryan. You know, you're in the club. But until then, you ain't going to find me on Twitch Main.
Yeah, it's almost like, dude, we got to like hunt you down at this point. Um, I want to talk about all those things.
I'm okay with that.
I want to talk about all those things that you said you do. We'll go into them kind of one by one. Let's do the podcast first. First off, first off, I already asked Chris this, but I want to hear your end of the story. How did you and Chris end up linking up in the first place?
It's weird because, like, I met Chris one night when he got dumped into my channel from a raid from a mutual friend of ours, Titan Naughty. So what had happened was Chris was watching a streamer who has a neurological disease. She has Tourette's. Her name is Sweet Anita. She's amazing. I love watching her highlight videos because she's hilarious and whatnot. So Chris was hanging on her chat, and then she dumped her crew via raid to Titan Naughty, and then Titan Naughty raided me, and then after the raid, Titan Naughty invited me and my friend Strange Tim to play Among Us. And Chris was in the Among Us game, and then Chris and I started bullshitting in between rounds, and then Chris started showing up in my streams after that, and then we hooked up on Discord. We started bullshitting. Chris, we were playing games together. We were doing like Stardew Valley and a few other games like League of Legends. And then a couple weeks in, Chris mentioned how he wants to do a podcast, but he doesn't know how to do it. And I was like, dude, I've done podcasts in the past. I used to be part of Untaken Haven podcast, which was a bunch of young bucks who were trying to make their name on YouTube. I was sort of the old man of that group. Bunch of 19-year-old degenerates. Love them all. But they're a bunch of psychos, man. So we did the Untaken Haven podcast for like 6 months. And then my partner, Bernadette, and I, we would do a podcast sporadically. But the problem with us was we see each other every day. We talk about everything. So trying to rehash what we already spoke about throughout the day, it didn't last.
Mm-hmm.
So after I told Chris about that, Chris was like, well, could you help me get it kind of off the ground? Can I get it out of the end, whatever? I was like, I'll do whatever you want. And then one night he goes, do you want to do it with me? And I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. And then after that, we kind of hashed out some details of when was the house going to work. We went in a production meeting about style, how we got the bar set up. And then we decided what we're going to do for like a format, because Chris and I can talk for 8 hours, nonstop. So we had to kind of be like, all right, we need a format, we need a style we can stick to, because it's going to be 9 hours of you and me just bullshitting about everything, right? So we came up with a design document that we go back and forth each week. Chris will make a document, I'll make a document. We fill it in with what we're drinking, whether it's a topic or a ramble, and then we add the happy ending, and that's the format. And then I play timekeeper and be like, coming up on the hour and a half mark, we got to move, because you know, Chris, the dude can just all day. So I gotta hit him with a bat sometimes and be like, yo, you gotta move. To be fair, he does it to me as well. So, and that's kind of how the podcast came about with me and Chris. We just, one night we were playing games together, dropped in a stream with each other, posted it, and ta-da, here we are, 18 episodes and 2 shots later.
Yeah, dude, that's pretty crazy. So you already had some sort of podcast experience going into this, and this was Chris's first podcast ever?
This was Chris's first on-camera anything ever.
Oh, I didn't know that. I remember when he told me that you guys have... I remember when he told me that you guys had only been doing it for like a couple months. I was mind blown. I'm like, dude, one, you two seem like you've been childhood best friends, like have known each other forever. And he's like, yo, you know what's crazy? I've only known Dox for like this short amount of time. I'm like, dude, that's crazy. You guys seem a lot closer than like brothers that I know almost, you know?
Yeah, I think it was 9 or 10 months we've known each other so far. And we've been doing a podcast for like 6.
Yeah, dude. When he told me that, I was literally like, "You've only been doing it for that short of an amount of time. It seems like you've been doing it for so much longer." I really do like your guys' podcast. Like I said, man, even that day I was browsing on Twitch, I went through a lot of different channels and nothing really caught my attention. And then I came across you two, and I just thought you two seemed like genuinely down to earth and like good guys. And then the one thing that I really liked about it too is like, dude, just your and his connection with one another. Like you can almost like feel it.
Yeah, Chris was weird because like when I met him, I I basically first day I met him, I said he was a sheep fucking asshole, right? Because he's
Yeah.
from Scotland, and I did the dumb American joke. I was like, you
Yeah.
big sheep fucking asshole, right? I was like, I put on the fake Scottish accent. And I was like, oh, laddie, you visit the farms and hit fucking sheep lately? And he fucking started dying, right? He was laughing his ass off. And I was like, all right, we got some connection. Well, every time he'd come in, I'd always bust his chops or he'd jump his voice. And, I'd always tease him, be like, look at you Scottish bastard. So there was this, when you're friends with somebody, you bust their ass.
Oh yeah.
You ride them, you tease them, you belittle them, you ruin their life with love. And when I started doing that, because I'm kind of like I can be like a laid back guy, I can be kind of a cool guy, I can be kind of shy, but like I'm an asshole that likes to bust chops. If you're my boy, I'm gonna razz you, I'm gonna bust your ass. Well, Chris could hang with that. So the more I started busting his chops, the more I kind of opened him up a little bit, and then and that's sort of like you see that in the podcast. Like I know Chris on your show mentioned the first couple episodes where he's like, I'm like pulling him, like, say something, you bitch. It's because he's got such a dynamic personality and such an amazing accent, which I slaughter every time, and I do it just to fuck with him.
Mhm.
I knew there was something inside that had to come out, and once I got him talking, now I can't shut him the fuck up.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's weird, man. Like, I've got siblings that I'm not as close to as I am with Chris. Like, Chris is not only is like, not only is he one of my best friends, but he's also my business partner. And that's the thing is like, Chris and I talk about the podcast as the show, our friendship, and then we talk about it as a business. When it comes to monetization or situational stuff or anything like that, Chris and I have always decided that any major decisions have to be mutually agreed on, and
Mhm.
that any profit is going to be split equally between the podcast, me, and him, so that the podcast can maintain a level of production and growth and professionalism, so that we can maintain that look and everything. And then if we do get monetized, the other 2/3 will go to each us, both of us, because that means we can continue to produce the podcast. If you catch what I mean.
Yeah, I do. That's it's cool that you mentioned putting some money back into the podcast because I know I told you off stream, but
Oh,
I was telling Docs that one of the things I really like about his podcast when I popped in is that it just seemed super professional, and we were talking about the green screen that he uses, and I remember even watching it for the first time. I'm just like, this is really cool. This is like it just adds another layer almost to your podcast. It just made it that much more interesting to watch.
well, here's the thing with that. I am a freak when it comes to production and presentation.
Hmm.
Like I obsess about it because before I started streaming, and I started streaming about 3 years ago. I made affiliate 3 years ago, and I started doing it as a tabletop RPG. The thing that always busted my nuts, and I hated it, was I would literally tune into a stream, and there'd be some dude, bro, laying in a papasan chair with a backwards hat on and a shitty headset, sitting on his ass playing Call of Duty in his dirty ass living room, looking like nothing. So I've also got a TV production background. I studied it in high school, a little bit in college. So I've always said when I started streaming that I was going to focus on my production and my presentation and myself as the brand, not the game, not the media, not the subject matter. I'm the brand. You're here for me. whatever I do or whatever projects I'm in, you're showing up because I'm there. Because a lot of streamers, especially like young cats, and I just turned 42, so I'm an old dog. I'm an old dog, right? I I look at it like this: if you don't start out building yourself as the brand, you're then pigeonholed. So whenever I deal with young cats in the streaming game, I'm like, make sure you are the show, not the game you play, not the topic you cover. You're the show, and make sure you got a good mic, and then everything else falls in line. So production for me is something I'm obsessed about because if you don't get good production, you don't got good presentation. That's how you're gonna have anybody come back.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point because at least me personally, when I'm searching for streamers or whatever, say I'm searching the GTA, browsing that category, I'm not searching for someone who's actually good at GTA. I don't really care. It's like, dude, you're looking for the person playing that game. You want them to be, you want the production to be there. You want to be able to hear them clearly, see them. There's not like a shit ton of lagging and stuff. You know, people might come for GTA or they might come for a podcast like I did, but the reason why people stay is one for the people obviously, but two for, everything they got going on. If you could tell that someone put a lot of work into it, at least me, and I could tell that you guys did, that's another reason why I wanted to stay too and kind of just like support you guys. Because I'm like, yo, these two dudes look like they put a lot of work into this. It wasn't just like some random shit where, they're Zoom calling each other and like they don't really give a fuck. I was like, these guys actually seem like they care. So let me stick around and see what they're about.
Yeah, there's two types of viewers on Twitch for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Viewers that want to watch somebody good at the game,
Mm-hmm.
and they want, or two, they want to watch somebody play the game, and they're more there for the entertainment side, the personality side. So you got the viewers that love the gameplay. If you're good and talented and amazing at the game, you're gonna get views. The other way you're gonna get views is if you are the game, right? I could be playing GTA, but you're not gonna be watching. You're not gonna be watching GTA because I played it. You're gonna watch it because Dox was playing some whacked ass character like a pimp or something,
Mm-hmm.
or doing some kind of crazy backstory. Because I'm garbage at video games. I'm utter trash, right? I've been playing them since the Atari 2600, and I've never been good because I've got issues. I've got some issues with my hands,
Mm-hmm.
so my gameplay has never been my focus. When it comes to gameplay, I'm going to tell you the design elements. I'm going to talk about the story development. I'm going to talk about the characters. I'm going to talk about the graphical engine. I add a level of commentary and expertise to compensate for my shitty ass gameplay.
Yeah, and like someone said in the chat, one of the biggest unwritten rules of Twitch, kind of like you were saying too, is people may come in for the game, but they stay for the personality. And dude, I couldn't agree more with that part. So we covered the podcast. Let's talk about these other creative things you do. I had no idea, by the way. I just started recently following you on Twitter, and I see in your bio you have like all these cool different things that you're doing. So besides the podcast, what are the other things that you do?
Well, but specifically on Twitch, I do tabletop RPG shows, so like Dungeons and Dragons, Shadowrun, Vampire, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do voice acting for. I'm the voice of two Twitch mascots for other streamers. So I like if you come into a streamer's chat and you know how like you get a follow alert and people have like custom alerts and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Two streamers have mascots. I do the voice for those mascots.
So let's talk about the voice acting first. How did you get into voice acting? Is this just something that happened?
Voice acting kind of came about. A buddy of mine, a real good streamer of mine, Drew over at Silver Studios, had a mascot for this little skull head thing. He's got like a little human skull that he had it. He had a contest to name it. It was sort of like his channel mascot, where like Tim the Tatman has Kevin the Penguin, and a couple other streamers have like stuffed animal mascots. Well, Drew had a skull, and Drew and I had hooked up and talked a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
collabing games, and Drew asked me if there's any way I can make his skull talk for him. I was like, yeah, I could do that. not knowing what the fuck I was doing at the time, by the way. No clue. I was like, yeah, I can make that happen for you. I'll just record some voice lines, and then I'll say some stupid funny shit, and then you can set it as your follow and your alert and your host and your raid. So Drew was like, yeah, give it a shot, whatever. Well, I sent Drew a couple samples of stuff I recorded. No clue what I was doing at this time. Winging it like a motherfucker. Figured it out. Sent him like 5 or 6 lines. He thought they were hilarious. We drew up a contract for me to do all his basic alerts, host, raid, follow, sub.
Mm-hmm.
And I recorded 3 separate takes of each of those alerts. And he chose which one he liked. So after I did that for him and expanded to, well, I want to make more custom audio for my mascot. Can you do more? Well, at this point, I've got over 300 custom audio lines for this mascot that Drew uses for stream. Well, then it's spooled into someone else saying, hey, I like what you do for Silver Studios. Could you do something different for my channel? And then I ended up voicing a second mascot. And then somebody asked me one night, oh, if I show you this video clip, can you do stupid voices over the top of it? Kind of like that game, Whose Line Is It Anyway, when they play a movie clip, but they make their own lines.
Oh, yeah.
That's sort of how the voice acting came about.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I had no idea that you did that stuff, again, until I saw that I followed you on Twitter and I saw you're doing all these like crazy different things. I'm like, damn, this man can kind of do it all, dude. And it's also kind of crazy that you started off by winging it. I feel like that's how a lot of really good things start about too. So they're saying in the chat.
Yeah, I'm self-taught. Yeah.
So they're saying in the chat, Dungeons and Dragons.
Sorry,
I saw on your Twitter bio too your DM. That's Dungeon Master, right?
Yes, sir.
I have one Dungeons and Dragons story. I was living in North Carolina at the time. I was trying to make some new friends because I didn't know anybody there. And I remember one of these, I joined some sort of app. It was probably like Meetup or one of the apps kind of like that. And I remember one of the things I saw, it's like, yo, Dungeons and Dragons. So I had never played the game before. I didn't know anything about it. But I'm like, all right, yeah, we're doing this. I'm making new friends. And it wasn't even online. It was at this guy's house. So I remember going to this guy's house, and I had no idea what Dungeons and Dragons was going to be like. I know, like, I made a character before. I think his name was Roland Wolfsbane or something, and I had to, if I remember correctly, I had to choose like his stats and characteristics or something. But I remember getting there, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be cool. They had the map or whatever. And then I remember one dude, and then it's like, sometimes when I get nervous, I just start, I kind of get like giggly and laugh. Like I was a type in school where like if a teacher's yelling at me, I'm like laughing in her face, but I'm not meaning to do it like that. And then it just gets me into some more trouble. So I remember I'm there, and these guys were like super, super into D&D. And, one dude made like a medieval playlist on his Spotify, so he was playing all of these like medieval type songs, and like it just kind of made me laugh a little bit. And then I remember we were going around the table and they were rolling for whatever it had to be, and then these guys like broke out into like these crazy voices for their characters, and I just kind of like lost my shit. And it was not normal voices at all. They were doing like some crazy over the top shit. And I'm like, I'm sorry guys, like I'm just going to use my normal voice. I don't want to, do all of this crazy shit. And then after the first night, I don't think I ever went back. I think I just drove home. I'm like, all right, well, I guess we're done with this.
It's weird because like for me, like I like to do accents. I do all kinds of shitty like accents. So what you're describing is like D&D hardcore, right? They're like,
dude,
we got the music,
so
voices,
hardcore,
we got the costume, right? Not me. Like I'll do a crazy voice or two, but I'm not gonna like wear the helmet and play the music in the background. Like No,
Dude,
man.
but the thing is
A
too,
voice you're gonna get out of
I
me,
don't mind the
I'll
voices.
respond in character.
I don't mind the voices, and I actually think the voices are fun, but it's just like I know you at this point, even though it's our first time actually talking. If me, you, and Chris and whoever we did a game, dude, yeah, it would be funny to do voices. It's just that I had never met these guys before, and like also, there was no period of getting to know each other. It was like, hey, I walked into the house, and like 6 minutes later, they're doing these crazy voices with no introductions, nothing. I think that's what the craziest part was. There wasn't like, hey, let's talk beforehand and have a beer and talk for 30 minutes and get to know each other. It was like, hey, my name's Matthew, and now I'm going to roll this crazy, and then it just went right into the voices. No transition.
Yeah, you basically walked in and went, "Oh, you very good lad. Welcome to the table. I'm Roland Goldstein. You are nobody important. Why don't you sit down, pick up the magic math rocks, and we'll have a good time?"
Dude,
You didn't have any. You didn't have a "Hey, how you doing?" They jumped into it, and you're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! Hey,
I shit
warm me
you.
up.
I
Give me a
sh-
reach around before you go full on at me, right?"
Yo, I shit you not. It was exactly like that. And all of these dudes were like lifers, like this guy said. So it made me feel even more weird that I had never even played ever before and knew like virtually nothing about it. And I'm walking in and it's like all of these masters who have these like custom dice and all this shit. And it was just, it was just very strange.
You showed up with your Yahtzee dice.
Uh,
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like D&D. Let me put you this: role playing can be really intimidating if you go to the wrong table,
yeah.
right? Because you get hardcores like you had, and you get guys that just play stats sometimes. So it's really hard to find your flavor of table. And with me as a DM or a dungeon master or game master, I adapt my flavor, my style to my players. So like if I have like fresh meat like you,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna throw you in the deep end all like off the bat. I'm gonna tell you about the mechanics. I'm gonna tell you about the story, and then I'm gonna be like, all right, if you and I are doing a role play session, right? All the role play session is you're just pretending to be someone else. So
Right.
if I pretend to be a dwarf from another land, yeah, I'll say, okay, you meet with the shopkeeper. His name is Grimdark. He's the dwarf, and then I'll be like, hey, welcome to the shop, lady. How may I help you? And that's a prompt to encourage you to role play. But if I notice you're not feeling it,
Hmm.
I'll drop it because as a GM and a DM, you have to know the room. You got to read the room. And if someone's not comfortable with role play or RP, no matter what you do, you're not going to get them to do it. You're actually going to make them uncomfortable. And you say, hey, do you just want to make a roll instead of doing this interaction in real time? And a lot of times, good GMs will give you the option. If you don't feel comfortable RP, that's what the dice are for. If you're into RP and you want to RP the shit out of it, then we don't throw dice. But that table should have recognized that you weren't comfortable and they should have eased off it. They didn't. That's on them, not you.
Yeah, and it's not even that I didn't like to or didn't want to do role like the RP shit. I think I would actually really enjoy that. It was just I had literally no idea what was going on. No one really explained anything to me. So I'm just kind of like you said, dude, they threw me into the deep end my first day playing. And that was the last time I ever played, man.
Yeah, that wasn't the table for you.
No, I think I need to give it another shot. Do you and Dread Pirate Reynolds, do you guys have a game? Because you said Pat should join.
Yeah, actually, I'm working on Patch to join the Tales from the Loot game.
Sorry, say that one more time.
It's Dread Bravo said Patch to join the Tales from the Loot game.
Oh, that's a new game that you're setting up or whatever.
Yeah, right now I have two projects in the works for Dread. On Dread's channel, Ready Play Go, it's a role play channel for streamers by streamers. In the fall, I'm gonna be running a game called Tales from the Loop with him and a few other guys. And then on my channel, we're gonna be bringing back Star Wars because I had a Star Wars game that Dread was a part of, but it got canceled because my life kind of went batshit crazy.
Yeah.
So I am currently in 2 projects of Dread right now.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, dude. I would love to give it another shot at some point. How long have you been playing for?
I've been playing role playing games and DMing role playing games for about 25 years.
Oh shit! So you're like the guy to go to. You'd be like a really good DM. I heard you say GM before. Is that what's the difference between a DM and a GM?
There is no difference. It's a naming thing. Dungeon Master is strictly used for the game Dungeons and Dragons,
Uh huh.
where GM is for any other flavor of RPG.
Oh, okay. That makes sense then. Yeah, dude. It seems obviously I had like a pretty shitty first experience, but in general, that was my first time ever doing any sort of, I guess, role play game, and I really did think it had a lot of potential with the right people, especially with people like you're actually friends with, and like you could like kind of bust each other's balls. Another part I forgot to say too is there was no like joking around with these dudes. Like they were like very very serious. So when they were doing these crazy accents, they weren't doing it like, "Hey, I'm doing this," like having fun with it. They were literally just like, "And now I take the sorcerer down to." I'm like, "Yo, what the fuck is going on?" I felt like I was in like a different dimension almost, man.
Yeah, those are hardcore. Those are lifers, man. Those guys. I mean, if you get in a game with a hardcore crew, it can be really great because the stories are going to be really detailed. There's going to be a lot of really good character moments. But like, if that's not your, if you have no lead up to that, you haven't had time in that, it's going to be so off-putting. But a hardcore table and guys who are lifers and really get into it, some really cool stories can happen and some really neat adventures can happen. But you got to buy in and you got to be all in, or it won't work at a hardcore table.
Right. And one thing that I liked about it a lot too is it's like a super creative game, it seems like. So it's like a nice way to have like some sort of, an additional creative outlet, which I thought was really cool. And I'm sure as like a DM or even a GM, you kind of have to be like ultra creative with this stuff because you're like running the show.
Um, well, that's a complicated statement because role playing and Dungeons and Dragons tabletop RPGs are what we call collaborative storytelling. So it's not just one person telling the story;
Hmm.
it's everybody together telling the story. Have one hell of an adventure. So the GM or the DM, in the easiest terms I could explain it, is the director of the movie, right?
Right.
The director sets the setting, designs the set pieces, controls all the NPCs or the extras, right? All the characters that the players are going to interact with, and the GM also has to know the timeline of the adventure, right? While the players essentially have to react to everything that the GM has put in place. Now, good GMs will act as directors, but they won't act as somebody who dictates the story. A good GM will set the story, they'll set the threads of the story, the mystery or whatever, they'll lay clues and breadcrumbs, and then they'll allow the players to take that and run. And once the players take that and run, the GM then reacts to the player. That's a healthy back and forth GM player relationship. A negative GM player relationship is when the GM says, "This is the story, this is the path." It's like open world games versus linear corridor shooter. You want a scripted designed open world, but you don't want a linear corridor. You want a nice in between. You want those tight action sequences with the risk reward, but then you want the freedom to explore and advance the world and build the world not only from a GM's perspective, but you want the players to build it because then most of the work is lifted off the GM shoulders and all the work is lifted off the players' shoulders because everybody is working in concert to build the world and fill out the story and be epic. No one person is controlling the narrative. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I do like that explanation a lot. By the way, um, I like it because now I kind of realize it's almost like the DM or GM is setting the scene, and they're kind of just letting it unfold within the
Yep.
players. That's what a good DM or GM would be, I'm assuming, and then a bad one would be someone who's like, "Yo, I'm taking control. Like, this is my fucking movie."
Yeah.
What do you prefer to be, DM,
Yeah. Did you
GM, or
ever? I know
go
you're a
ahead?
little young. No, I didn't mean to interrupt. Did
It's
you
okay.
ever see Dexter's Lab?
Yes, yes, I remember that show. You're
Do
talking
you
about the
remember
show?
the? Do you remember the D&D episode where Dexter gets pissed off because his players are changing the rules and he gets mad and he's like, "But I made the world. You do what I say." Not a good GM, Dexter. Back off, bro. Ease up.
Yeah, my memory's a little shot. I don't remember that specific episode, but yeah, dude, that goes along of the lines of what we're talking about. Um, it
Right.
sounds like you're a very good DM slash GM. What do you prefer doing more, being the DM or being one of the players?
I mean, if I gotta say I like being a GM more than being a player because and this is gonna sound kind of assholeish, and I don't intend it to sound this way.
Hmm.
One, nobody runs a story like I do, right? Nobody runs stories or designs games the way I do. So when somebody doesn't do things a certain way, I have GM like issues where I'm like, but that would be so much better if you did this. So as a player, I gotta turn off the GM, which is hard to do after 20 some years because I spent more time as a GM than a player. Because my crew automatically was like, "You're the guy running the show," because for some reason I'm good at it. They say like people have said I'm a great GM. I tell good stories. I make good characters. I make the game fun. So I spent most of my role play career as a GM. So for me to be a player at this point, it's really hard because I'm so used to directing and not acting. So I need to learn to be an actor and not so much a director. So I enjoy GMing more than playing.
Yeah, it almost sounds like once you're a DM, and especially for a long time, especially 25 years like you have, it sounds like once you're a DM, it's probably really, really difficult to switch back to player and enjoy it at least, you know?
It can be like I look at it like this. Use this analogy, like Ron Howard, right? Used to be an actor in Happy Days and a bunch of other classic movies. Now he's one of the most celebrated directors in Hollywood. Ron Howard's not going to go act anymore
Hmm.
because he's too used to running everything and putting his vision together. So, as a GM who's gotten 25 years mostly as a GM, you're asking me then to be an actor. It's a great, it's a great switch up. I love being a player for a short term, but in the long run, I'm gonna I'm gonna have to deal with issues of my own DMing mentality, trying to ruin the experience for myself, and then sometimes that can ruin the experience for the GM that you're playing with. So I'm very aware of okay, I'm a player, got to shut my GM side off because I don't want my GM side to overrule what that GM is doing because I'm like, but I know that rule works this way, but if you want to work around it that way, you can do that. That's his show or her show or their show. Shut up and play your role. It's hard for me to do. So I spend a lot of time as GM because not only as a GM can I be a player, but I also get the best parts. I get to be the villains, baby. I get to be the villains. I get to be the crazy weirdos. I get to be the stripper that warns the players. I get to be the thief. I get to be the weird freaking animal. Like I get to do all that
Yeah.
shit. Players are one dude. I'm everybody, baby. Let's go.
That does sound like a lot of fun to be the stripper, the weird guy, the villain, the monster. That's funny. I mean,
Oh yeah, man. It's very fun.
the only thing I could think of is maybe it might be nice to take a back seat once in a while because I'm sure being a DM from that one experience I had. Although it was a bad experience, the DM himself seemed like he went super hard with. I don't know if creating the map or like all the stuff like that. It does seem like it's kind of like a decent amount of work.
It is.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. Even from that one time, although it was a bad experience, I do want to give it another try. It seems like it's a really fun game.
It can be. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There are tables that are fun, and there are tables that are like pulling teeth, man. It's both ways. It can go either way. It all depends on the vibe, the player, and the players and the GM. If that all clicks, some of the most amazing times I've ever had. When it don't work, some of the most horrendous experiences of my entire life.
Yeah, that was kind of like my experience, not like a very good one. But that's cool, man. That's another creative thing you do. Dude, you seem to do it all. You stream, you do the voice acting, you do D&D. I think I saw somewhere, and I might be wrong, you do martial arts too?
Yep, I've been a martial arts instructor for 23 years.
Jesus.
Recently retired.
So what martial art,
I've studied.
sorry, I was going to say what martial art were you instructing? Or which ones do you know, I guess, is a better question.
I like to say it like this: I am proficient
Mm-hmm.
in 12 different styles from around the world. I can teach 6 of them.
Holy shit! I didn't even know there were 12 styles to begin with. you
Well,
can
there are thousands of martial arts styles from around the world. I know I'm proficient in 12.
So not only is Dox kicking your ass, but Dox is going to kick your ass in 12 different variations.
And then Doc's is going to narrate it too. And it comes to that, bitch. Take your seat and right.
And he's going to stream the whole thing as well. What are your
Like, me and Rogelio, that chicken. Me and Rogelio, that murder chicken. We going to throw down. We're going to go in the octagon. And I'm going to beat that chicken. I'm going to beat him so far his T-Rex ancestors be like, yo, stop offending that man.
So, what are your thoughts on, by the way, I've been listening to this. I've only really listened to 2 podcasts mostly. One of them I kind of just got into. It's this dude named Jocko. He's got it's called the Jocko podcast. He was like a Navy SEAL.
Jocko Willick?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you know
Jocko.
yeah, you know who he is.
I love Jocko.
So I started listening. Me too, by the way.
Jocko's amazing.
He is, dude. He's really good. He's like one of the only podcasts I actually listen to. But he talks about jujitsu all the time. Is that one of the ones that you're proficient in?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah.
So for someone like me with, dude, no martial art background or experience at all, that kind of to me seems like the one to go to. Maybe I'm just biased because I'm listening to this dude's podcast who always talks about it. But what are your thoughts on, I guess, jiu-jitsu in general?
BJJ, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for the listeners out there that don't know, is a art of grappling that originated in Japan, then migrated over to South America, and then took root in Brazil. And then the Brazilians, Helio Gracie and the Machado family, I think it's not John Jock, but one of the Machados and the Gracies really get credit for taking the Japanese jiu-jitsu and turning it into Brazilian jiu-jitsu by adding techniques to it. Now, what jiu-jitsu centers on is grappling your opponent. It's the science of the little guy can take down the big guy with technique and precision over strength and power. Jiu-jitsu focuses a lot about like positioning on the ground, choke holds, joint locks, and being able to leverage your opponent's weight against them. So to me, jiu-jitsu is a brilliant art. Now, guys like Jocko and Joe Rogan, they're gonna romanticize the shit out of it because like they've done it on like the big stage. They've trained with the masters, right?
Yeah.
Jocko and Joe Rogan, they've had it. It's been given to them from the guys who know it, like they grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Real BJJ a lot of times you're gonna walk into, and I mean no disrespect, but I mean some disrespect. You're gonna walk into a Mick dojo. They're gonna charge you 20 grand. They're gonna teach you to roll around in some fancy pajamas, and then you're gonna get your ass kicked on the street.
Hmm.
So real jujitsu teaches you not to get involved in the first place.
Yeah.
But if you do, you're gonna take that guy down, and you're either gonna break a limb or you're gonna choke him unconscious, and then you're gonna go home to your family. I love jujitsu. It's one of my favorite arts. It's detailed, it's nuanced, it's it's a beautiful art, but it's limited because jujitsu doesn't have any stand up. Jiu-jitsu focuses on grappling and groundwork almost explicitly. If you can't get the guy to the ground because he can box your ears off,
Hmm.
jiu-jitsu ain't gonna do shit but give you a fancy belt and a black eye. I love jiu-jitsu. Don't get me wrong, one of my top favorite arts. I do it all the time, but it has its limitations. And Jocko and Joe Rogan are gonna be like, jiu-jitsu is all you need. No, you don't. You need other stuff.
So
I
yeah,
love Jocko and Joe Rogan's jiu-jitsu.
so yeah, like you're saying, and I totally agree. Which is why I was like, yo, I might be biased here, because dudes like Joe Rogan and dudes like Jocko, they do romanticize the shit out of it, and they make it sound really good, and they do make it sound like that's kind of like the only martial art you need.
It
The
is.
one thing I liked about it, um, is one, I like how, like you were just saying, it kind of can give like the little guy leverage. Dude, I'm a small guy, man. I'm like 5'6", 5'7". Um, so I like that aspect, how it's more kind of
No, me too. I've been,
really, dude. For some reason, I thought you were like 6'5".
dude, no. I'm 5'7", 5'8". I roll around at about 208 and I'm about 25% body fat. I'm a big, thick fucking dude, but
Yeah,
I'm small, man. I'm like short and fucking built like a linebacker.
I guess I've only
I just live big like I'm 6'4". I talk big. I roll big.
yeah, that must be it, because I guess I've only really seen the top half of you. Obviously, for some reason, man, I could have, if I had a guess, man, I would have thought you were a big dude, like 6'5". But yeah, dude.
No,
Little nipple play in there for the fans.
no, bro, I'm 5'7".
Okay, yeah. So that's one of
That's
the
right.
things.
For the fans right there.
Somebody clip that real quick. Um, so one of the things I liked is
No,
like
don't put that.
he said, don't clip it. One of the things I liked is that, kind of like you said, it can give like the little guy an edge up on your competition. I like how it seems like a lot of it is almost like a mental game where it's kind of like outsmarting your opponent rather than kind of just using brute force and, kicking the shit out of someone. I also, like you said though, and I thought this before too, I'm like, BJJ, whatever, sounds awesome, but it kind of, that I was thinking the same thing. Like, you have to get them to the floor for you to kick their ass. Like, what if you're just, yeah, like you're in a street fight and some dude just comes up and punches you in the face and keeps, whatever. You got to get him down to do that. So do you think there's like I guess I also, one last thing I'd like about BJJ is, like you said, it also seems like it's based on, which I'm sure a lot of martial arts are, on a lot of like respect and good values, and kind of like using it as a last resort, which I like, because I'm not a bully. I'm not, even if I was like, really good at BJJ or anything, I'm not going to, be in the club breaking legs for fun. But do you think there's
Oh, why not? That's fun.
do you think do you think there's a combination that, what's the best martial art for like a street fight type thing, or maybe the best combination?
There's three.
Hmm.
There's three core styles you need to practice to be well-rounded and protect yourself.
Hmm.
BJJ, wrestling, American, Greco-Roman, folk style, any type of wrestling, sambo, any type of wrestling style, and either Muay Thai or American boxing. Muay Thai will give you the legs, the knees, and the elbows and the forehead. American boxing will teach you stuff like kinetic linking, proper distancing, and really knowing how to punch somebody. So if you got the trio or the trinity, BJJ, wrestling, and either kickboxing or boxing, you're pretty much guaranteed to be safe on the streets, barring like a gunfight. Even then, if you're within 21 feet, I'm taking your ass. I'm taking your scalp home, baby. 21 feet, there's a good chance I'm taking your ass home.
So how long have you been? I have a couple specific questions, but first, how long have you been studying martial arts for?
Since I was 6 years old, so probably 35 years at this point.
Okay, so you've been kind of doing it forever. I guess my next question, I'm not sure if you can really, you started very very young. I was going to ask if it gave you some sort of confidence. Like, let's talk about the pros that it has given you.
Uh, right off the jump, health and wellness, mental strength of character, uh, confidence, all that. Like, here's the thing: martial arts done in its most honorable and honest form makes you a better person.
Hmm.
Martial arts taught in a Mick dojo where all you care about is the black belt makes you an asshole.
Hmm.
And not the asshole like me with the heart of gold, a straight up fucking asshole. Or as Chris would say, a cunt, straight up.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I was kind of worried about too, because I know like we're in like a different age or whatever. I wasn't sure. I guess you probably know this question. How has the gyms changed from when you were first starting to kind of roll around to now? I know you're talking about the McDojos and shit like that. Like, how has it changed?
Well, there's a couple of changes, and especially if you talk about the world of martial arts. One, uh, after the 70s, it became sort of a cultural phenomenon because of Bruce Lee and the introduction of Hong Kong Action Theater film.
Hmm.
So one, it became available. So gyms were popping up everywhere. Two, they became a business. And what I mean is, when you run a dojo as a business, you got to keep the lights on. You got to pay the rent. So you have to make sacrifices to the art to keep people in class, pay the bill. And then the third major change is the advent of mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts changed like dojo culture because it became a sport. What I mean by that is traditional real martial arts don't teach you how to fight. They teach you philosophy. They teach you character. And MMA gym teaches you how to fight a sports style. One of the best examples I can give you of this is I do seminars, and I get called in to do BJJ seminars all the time. I flew in to do a seminar with an instructor that I know. He had a real cocky kid who was really pushing it hard. So he said, "Okay, he introduced me. This is Sensei Rick, Sensei Dox for you guys on Twitch. He's gonna lead. He's gonna lead class today. He's gonna do some drills. We're gonna get some stuff." Cocky kid popped up because I wasn't wearing a gi. I wasn't wearing an outfit, right?
Hmm.
I was wearing a rash guard and a pair of fight shorts. And my hair pulled back. Kid pops up. Who the fuck is this guy and what are his qualifications? The instructor goes, "Why don't you ask him? Or better yet, why don't you put him to the test?"
Oh.
I knew this kid. I read his type right away. Cocky, arrogant, next MMA superstar, right? Wanted to be part of the big show. Wanted to be a badass kicking everybody's ass, right?
Hmm.
Not the kind of person I like to be. So I asked the kid. I said, "All right, let's go. We'll spar. 5 minutes on the clock. You set the rules." He goes, "All right, let's BJJ. Only one to tap out lead." I was like, "That's it. That's all you want. 5 minutes, no holds barred, tap only." Kid's like, "Yeah." I was like, "All right, cool." I even gave him a position. I said, "What do you like?" He goes, "I want you on the bottom, right? Because we want to be middle on top." I was like, "That's all you want? You want mount and you want BJJ?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Why?" I said, "Nope, no problem." So the bell rings. I immediately take my leg across his waist, seatbelt him, roll him over, flatten him out on his belly, and then I take my elbows and I drive them along both sides of his spine with the pressure points along his shoulder blade, causing his back to arch and then not breathe. 2 minutes, get the kid. Kid, I get up, they stop the fight, kid taps out because he can't breathe because I got elbows into his spine. Kid taps out, I get up. Kid gets so angry, goes, "That's cheating, that's not jujitsu." The instructor then goes, "That's exactly what jujitsu is." Sensei Dox gave you the option to set the rules and set the position. You didn't say that it had to be sport BJJ. Doc showed you real BJJ. Well, that's what I mean. It's like the gym has kind of made philosophy and character secondary, where in a dojo, philosophy and character are first. If you catch my understanding.
Yeah, I do. One, that's a hilarious story. That's kind of one of the reasons why I'm still kind of hesitant to sign up for something like that, because one, um, this is gonna sound not humble. Obviously, there's no way to. I'm like a pretty humble guy. I don't want to roll around with like a bunch of, cocky assholes like the guy you were just talking about. That just sounds miserable to me. It's like, yo, I'm not sure if that guy's like an outlier and it's like, yo, he was just a cocky asshole, or maybe that's kind of how gyms are shifting nowadays. But I also, like you said, I kind of want that philosophy to be first. I think that would be the main reason why I'm kind of going there. And if that's secondary slash potentially non existent at these Mick dojos, it's like, maybe it's not really worth it to get into all that then.
It depends. If you're looking here, this is advice to everybody in chat. If you're looking for martial arts or training, there's a couple things you need to look for. When you walk into a school, one, how's the vibe feel? Does it feel like a traditional sort of character building? Can you smell the sweat in the blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two, ask the instructor their pedigree. They should tell you who trained them, where they trained, what rank they got, what style they trained. If they can't, they're like, oh, I'm, some, then it's a McDojo. And if they offer a contract up front that says you got to pay X amount of dollars and you're going to test every X amount of weeks, McDojo. A real dojo, you will test when you're ready and you will test when you have learned. They're out there, but they're not in your strip malls. They're not in your, you're not by the Targets in the Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
They're down the alleyway in the rundown brownstone, or like you in New Jersey, you look for the rundown brownstone, the fire department. They don't advertise. You just kind of wander in. It smells like sweat. It smells like blood, and you can see the instructor holding court in a way he actually wants to disseminate the philosophy and the skill instead of a guy collecting a paycheck. You can tell. I'm telling you can tell.
Right. The couple places that I've seen around me is almost like you're describing. It's a Mick Dojo. It's in some sort of strip mall, or it's right next to, some other big thing. And it's a chain. And a lot of these places, I've called a couple. A lot of them, you could just, they don't even put their price on their website. And it's almost like if a different person calls, they get a different price. So when I walk in and they're like, yo, look at this fucking noob, they're going to be like, all right, $400 a month, whatever. And that's like, I get what you're saying with like this contract signing and all that stuff, dude. It makes it feel just so disingenuous. I get that it's a business and they have to, pay their lights and stuff. But when you get into like forced contracts, almost like a normal gym membership, that's kind of where I'm like, you know, this maybe I should look into elsewhere.
Well, I'll tell you this: if you legit want to learn some training, you want to get in some training. After the podcast, shoot me your location, like the city,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll make some calls and I'll give you some names of some real legit people.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, I've trained around. I've trained with people around the world, so I got to know somebody in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not in like a super weird area either. I'm just in like central New Jersey. Our hour's almost up, Docs. I want to finish this off by asking you, first off, at the end, you could say whatever you want. I was going to ask if that was a really cool story you told us about that cocky asshole. I'm guessing you at least have one more story about something kind of like that. I would love to hear one more if you got it, man.
All right. Let me preface. What genre of story you want? Because I got nanny stories, I got bodyguard stories, I got martial arts stories, I got
Ooh.
bartending stories, I've got uh, DJ stories.
You know what?
Dude, I am the storyteller. Straight up, I got him.
I love it, man. I love it. You know what? Let's do one more martial art one because let's finish off with that because that's kind of what we're talking about.
Okay. I got a good martial arts story for you. And this one isn't about a cocky kid. It's about a kid Actually, I'll tell you this one. This one actually brings me one of my most stories. A couple of years ago, back when I was living in Wisconsin, I got offered to do what's called the Fun Fit Fair. The Fun Fit Fair is a collection of vendors to offer services to, okay, less able kids. Like if you guys can see on camera right now, I've got a deformed hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Fun Fit Fair caters services to people of physical inability or physical disability. They reached out to me and said, we have never had somebody come do martial arts because our kids are autistic, they're behavioral issues, they're wheelchair bound. We've never had anybody willing to come in and work with these kids. I was like, dope, I'm in, sign me up 100%. Because one of my things is 90% of my martial arts is self taught.
Mm-hmm.
I've met the old instructor in the park, went to his house, painted his fence, but a lot of it I learned on my own through reading text and watching videos and breaking down scrolls from different countries. So I learned a lot of self adaptation in the martial arts. So the advantage I have of this fun fit was due to my deformities and my disabilities, I learned how to adapt technique to myself. So I'm able to adapt it to somebody else whose body doesn't function as like a quote unquote normal human being. So the first year I got there, it was a 3 hour event or a 4 or 5 hour event. I didn't stop teaching for 7 hours because there were so many kids in various states of able body or whatever you want to call it, that never had somebody show them martial arts or believe in them as a person or trust that they can do this and I wasn't scared of them, that I had lines for like I taught for 7 hours straight. No potty, no water, no nothing. I was so, but it was one of the most rewarding things because to see a kid that's been discounted, or even an adult, because I taught adults too, to see a kid who's been discounted because they're different, to see a kid be able to say that, wow, I did this. Somebody believed in me. Somebody showed me something badass. The light in their eyes is like crack, bro. You can't get a high like that as a martial arts instructor. When a kid who's been discounted their entire life because they're different hits a move that a fucking able-bodied human being can't hit that I taught in 20 minutes, bro, that's crack. That kid that has that memory for the rest of their life that that one guy gave them a shot at something they wanted to do their whole life and showed them that if somebody takes the time and the effort, they can do this too. That right there, one of my best martial arts stories of all time.
I love it, man. I was looking for another like cocky asshole you killed somebody story, but I got something even better, bro. I got a nice heartwarming story there. I love it, man. That's awesome. I'm sure that sounds it sounds like it
Well,
was super rewarding too.
well, it was. You want a quick cocky asshole? I
But
was a
yeah.
bartender up in Upper Michigan.
Hmm.
But bunch of drunken hunters came in, right? One night I'm working the bar and they start routing shit up. I told them, hey, knock that shit off or we're going to have a problem. Well, you know, a bunch of jackass redneck hunters, and I mean no disrespect to rednecks. I got a bunch of them. You know what I mean when I say redneck fucks. I
Yep.
got a bunch of redneck fucks rolling and told them to calm their shit down or there was going to be beef. They're like, oh, what you going to do about it, little man, blah, 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 blah. I said, bro, don't make me treat you like my 5-year-old because I'm embarrassed you in front of your kid. Night goes on, they start some bullshit. They start picking on some ladies. They say, hey, they don't want none of that. Take the shit elsewhere. Guy does this, reaches over the bar, grabs my shirt, pulls me like this. He goes, what the fuck you gonna do about it now? Here's what I did. Grabbed a Jack bottle and went upside his head. Conked him with the Jack bottle, went over the 3 speed racks, drop kicked his buddy into the dartboard, and then grabbed a pool ball and chucked it at his friend and hit him right between the eyes, knocking his friend out cold. Went back to the original guy, stood over the top of him and said, you got 30 seconds till the sheriffs get here. So roll the fuck over on your belly and put your hands behind your back, Jethro. Otherwise, I'm going to make it so you can't fucking hunt again. There's your cocky jackass story.
Damn, dude, that's like straight out of a movie. Holy shit. God damn. Yeah, that's
Dude, I
a.
don't play, man. I've lived a crazy life, dude. I used to, I used to jump trains as a teenager and just go wherever the train went for the weekend. Pack a backpack, tell my mom I'm going to my cousin's, jump on a train, end up somewhere, jump a train back to town by Sunday night before bedtime. Show up, scuffed up, beat up, whatever. My mom's like, "Where were you?" I played football with my cousin.
Meanwhile, you're in. You don't probably don't even know where the fuck you are.
Dude, I don't know where I don't know where half of it was half the time, bro.
Oh man, I love it. All right, well, Dox, is there anything you wanted to say that you didn't get a chance to say this time? By the way, we have Dox coming on in very shortly with Chris too, sometime next month.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is like, for those of you in chat that are thinking about streaming, and if you want to give it a shot or you want to start a podcast, do it. Don't be afraid. I know it can be nervous. It can be nerve wracking and being crazy. Just hit that button, give it a shot. If it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, you'll know. And if it is something that you're passionate about, reach out to other people. Reach out to other people because you'll find that there are people in this community who will help you guys. Like I didn't get to where I am by not having help. So there are people out there who will teach you the ropes, teach you about mics, teach you about audio levels, teach you about video work, all that stuff. If you really want to give it a shot, man, there's nothing holding you back. Just hit the go button and give it a shot because one, it might be the most rewarding thing you ever done in your life. Or two, it might be the most terrifying. And then don't don't tell them the docs told you to if it ends up bad.
I totally agree. I guess I want to end on first off thanking everybody who came out tonight, and also great advice from Docs. I think there's a lot of people out there that can help you if you want to start streaming or doing a podcast. A lot of resources out there. I'm sure you could always reach out to either of us for questions you might have or anything like that. And thank you guys. Thank you everyone for coming out. Docs, I'll talk to you in Discord in a second. And have a great night, everybody.